Here in the Netherlands, I like to browse coffee stuff on Marketplaats. I think it is the most popular Dutch online marketplace for second-hand stuff. And one day I found this grinder, the Rancilio Rocky, for 8 euros. And then I thought, could I mod it to become a good espresso grinder? The Rocky is not a coincidence. I've seen that it's durable, it can produce good cups, it's been paired with Rancilio Silvias for decades, and it has 50mm flat burrs that at that time I wanted to test. I didn't have experience with flat burrs, but this one delivers a more traditional profile, sweeter, more body, with less clear separation of notes. But the first issue that a hobbyist in espresso will find is that the clicks in this grinder are too large, the steps are too large. A change of one click will produce 10 seconds difference in the extraction time. For me, it's too much. But there were some people on Reddit and Home Barista saying that it is possible to make it become stepless. There were mods for that. Then I decided to make it. I followed the instructions on Home Barista. I removed the button, inverted the pin, added a gasket. I bought a kit of gaskets with different sizes, tried several ones, but none of them were able to hold the burr in position. It was slipping when I was grinding, and too much to a level that was not acceptable. How the other people made it work, I don't know, but I didn't give up. As part of another hobby, I had bought a 3D printer months before, and I was learning how to design parts for 3D printing. Then I decided to use as a study case, and I designed some gears, printed a lot of prototypes, and at the end it worked. And I'll leave a link in the description with all my models for you to download, print, modify your Rocky. It's free for personal use, okay? But it was not done. There was a last point that was supposedly resolved, at least according to J.K. Makes and Brian Quen. That is the retention. That is possible to be reduced to something around 0.1 to 0.3 grams. J.K. Makes has a design for the inclined base, but it didn't fit my model, which is a doserless, and the power switch is not on the sides. Then I had to redesign the inclined base, and also redesigned the anti-popcorn, the funnel, and the bellow. Designed this attachable base for the cup, but all the parts were remixed or redesigned from scratch using the concepts that I saw on this design by J.K. Makes. Well, the bellow I initially downloaded from a different designer, but it never printed. I ran several calibration procedures in my 3D printer. I tried different settings and all they failed. So I decided to design my own bellow, and after a few prototypes, this one is working great, and it really makes the difference in the retention. I'm gonna fix this first gear on the support. This is the gear that has 14mm, and for that I'm gonna use the screw that is an M4 by 15. This one should be tight because this is what is gonna hold the dial, otherwise your adjusting will be skipping. Now I'm gonna fit this support inside under the button. So here we had the original button that I removed and also the pin. Now the support will stay in the exact position for the other screw, the old M4 by 12, to hold it inside the grinder. All the pieces are black, then it's a bit difficult to see, but I just put the screw here and fixed to the grinder. For the knob, I'm gonna use the M3 by 20mm. Just put it inside this knob and fix in this position, connected to the other gear. Now I'm gonna put the chute back. The screw came, I think, with this model of grinder that was originally, I think, the dozer. The larger gear. And the last screws. Finally the funnel, okay, the anti-popcorn and the bellow. We've all set. it's time to grind some coffee. And as you can see in these images, without spraying water in your beans, it's a mess. And with RDT, the static is reduced and then it's pretty okay. There's one information that is misleading though. After grinding some coffee, the retention is indeed reduced to 0.1 to 0.3 grams. But after cleaning the grinder, the first one was about 1.5 or 2 grams, then it was gradually reduced. After maybe grinding 50 grams, I got the 0.1 to 0.3 grams. Opening the grinder, I could see that the vibration, popcorning, and static were spreading coffee everywhere inside. After a complete cleaning, I collected 3.4 grams of coffee, and of course not all the 3.4 is exchanged, but definitely not only 0.1 to 0.3 grams. Then, to confirm that the amount of old coffee being pushed by the new coffee is not so small, I decided to make a new experiment. I ground coffee until I achieved the 0.1 retention level. Then I ground rice much coarser than I was grinding coffee to be able to get more coffee out of the grinder. And I got 21.6 grams. To make it more visible, I spread the mix over 3 sheets of paper, and it was very clear to me that the amount of coffee exchanged is not negligible. Grinding more coffee later, I didn't see much rice, and it makes sense because the rice I ground much coarser and then it will have less retention. Let's assume then that I collected 100% of the rice, 20 grams, and only 1.6 is coffee. It is still much more than 0.3, much less than 3.4, but to my view it's acceptable. And what do you do with this information? You may accept 2 grams of old coffee in your cup, or you may grind 2 grams of coffee before the first shot of the day, or when you are changing beans, just to purge the old coffee before grinding your doughs. But until 5 years ago, 1 to 2 grams of retention was acceptable. The game changer was niche 0. That's when people became more obsessed with 0 retention. But to my view, 1 to 2 grams is okay. But if you have a better idea on how to measure this exchange on the grinder, please put in the comments, because so far I didn't find anything better. What is my conclusion? This grinder can deliver good espressos, and it has now increased in sufficient capacity to fine-tune the grind size to your taste, but it's noisy and it has a retention that it's not negligible, considering the grinders available in 2025 for less than 250 euros. And I think this is a point to consider. If you already have a Rocky and want to upgrade it, if you have access to a 3D printer, maybe it's worth trying. My models are free for personal use, give it a try. Would I buy an old Rocky for 80 euros to modify? Ashes from the future, changing a bit the conclusion, because I had access to this Shardor 64mm flat Burrs, and I was saying that I wouldn't buy the Rocky just to modify it. I would rather save a bit more and buy a DF54 for 300 euros in Europe, or maybe a Star Seeker E55 that is being sold here for about 200 euros from AliExpress. But now that we have the Shardor for around 230 euros in Europe or $150 in the US, for me, I think it's a no-brainer. If you didn't see the review that I posted a few weeks ago, check this link that I'm putting here, and you will have a detailed analysis about this grinder and a comparison against the DF64. But for now, thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.